Good afternoon. I'm going to use the transformation of Valencia's inner harbor, or the Marina as we call it now, as a case study to look at the challenges of entrepreneurial design governance, and in particular in the interface between design and financing. So I'll start with a little bit of background, then I will describe the financial model, and then talk a little bit about constraints and challenges, and finish up with some final thoughts. So as probably all of you know, the transformation of Valencia's inner harbor is linked to the America's Cup sailing competition. So following their win in 2003, a linguist team principal, Ernesto Bertarelli, created a private company called America's Cup Management, or ACM, to manage the organization of the next edition of the America's Cup. And because it was a Swiss-based team, they needed a venue. So they launched a competitive process to find a venue for the competition. And in November 2003, Valencia was selected, was designated to hold the America's Cup competition, which would take place in 2007. The event was broadly well received by the local population, by the politicians, of course, by the general public and the businesses, because it was seen as an opportunity for the city. It was seen as it offered the opportunity for transforming the city physically, in particular transforming the waterfront, where we are now, and also it was an opportunity to market the city, to compete for investment and for tourism. So linked to that, in terms of the real financial model, the first important element I would like to discuss is leverage, is to highlight the importance of leverage in this case. This includes the money necessary to transform to the physical transformation for the infrastructures, and also assembling the land, land ownership for the project. And I think that this quote from a former mayor of the city summarizes very well what I'm trying to say about leverage. So she says, "What good is the America's Cup to me, City of Valencia? Well, a lot of good to me, because the central government is going to foot the bill for some phenomenal constructions worth a mint, and the port will be a gold mine. That's stupendous. Projects of this type are fantastic. With my meager input and the regional governments, the net result is a bonanza project, and I'll fill my boots. It's going to be wonderful." Okay. So, of course, recovering the inner harbor for citizen use was a long-time aspiration of the city, and the America's Cup was seen as an opportunity to do so. So it was an opportunity for doing two things. One, to expedite the cession of the inner harbor to the city council. There was an agreement because the inner harbor was in the hands of the ports authority, which is directly dependent on the central government. Okay, there was an agreement with the local authority for it to be passed on to the city council, but it hadn't taken place yet. And the second thing, it was a good pretext to receive investment from the central government, as we have seen. So, because they had also the precedent of the investments in Barcelona and Seville for the Barcelona Olympics and the Sevilla Expo in 1992. Okay, so Valencia wanted to do the same. So in fact, the regional government requested from the central government infrastructures such as the high-speed train and improvements in the 3 airports of the region, not just the Valencia one, the 3 main airports. And also the mayor submitted a request for 1,600 million euros from the Ministry of Public Administrations for improvements in the city. So this is the first important element of the financial model. The second has to do with the actual financial instrument used. And this also highlights the importance of the public sector for this kind of mega projects. Because this is actually speculative investment, and the private sector didn't want to take the risk. Okay, so there comes the public sector. So what happened is that a consortium of the 3 levels, the 3 main levels of government in Spain, which is the local, regional, and national, a consortium created by the three of them and chaired by the city had been created with the purpose of first creating a candidacy plan, okay, a bid for the competition, and once Valencia had been selected, they were responsible for implementing the infrastructures that were stipulated in the contract with ACM, with America's Cup Management. The infrastructures we can see here were initially budgeted in 500 million euro. They included a canal. Probably you've seen the canal, which is giving access to the open sea. This wasn't here. This was built just for the competition. And the docking of mega yachts, the team bases, one of which is this one where we are now, and an iconic building, which is the now called Vélez Events, which we can see there. For nearly a year, they couldn't reach an agreement of how actually finance the project, but finally the formula decided was that the consortium would ask for a loan from the Official Institute for Credit, which is a sort of public bank. And why was that? This formula was chosen for two main reasons. The first one was to avoid a budgetary allocation, because a financial budgetary allocation is a different kind of financial assets, and it doesn't count as public debt. Well, does count as public debt, while a loan doesn't, okay? And the second issue was because for this kind of projects, which as I said, it's a speculative investment, the risk is very high because it has a high institutional component, political component, and no private institution wanted to take the risk. So the way of doing it was to go to the public sector, okay? So that's why they decided. The second important thing is that the central government actually was expecting to recover 70% of that investment, of that loan, through the exploitation of the inner harbor once the competition had taken place. Okay. So was this successful? Well, the event was considered a success. The America's Cup was considered a success. Also, the projects, in the sense that a mega project like this one was completed under budget and on time, which is rare for this kind of mega projects. Well, the number of visitors to the city increased. It was considered a success. However, just 2 years after, things changed. The inner harbor remained deserted. The consortium declared losses of around 60 million euro, which was similar to the benefits that America's Cup Management were declaring. Okay, and on top of this, the hospitality sector, which was expected to be boosted by the America's Cup, because there had been an oversupply, the sector was in a situation of crisis. So a project that started as a successful project ended up as a project which was not successful. So I will also very briefly talk about the constraints and challenges. So the first one is the prioritization of the needs of the event over the long-term needs of the city. So the event was necessary because it was like the catalyst for the transformation, but at the same time, this was a strategic project for the city, which was decided by ACM because the project was designed taking into account the needs of the competition. So in the contract with ACM, it was stipulated exactly what the infrastructures had to be, all the details, etc. So it wasn't thinking about the needs of the city, the citizens in a project of such importance. It was thought for the America's Cup. The other constraint is the lack of holistic planning, because here what took priority was returning the loan. So the parts of the sites within the area which were more profitable were developed first, because that was the objective, okay, to return the loan. And the third element, which I think it's important, is also that the area, because it had been designed with the America's Cup in mind, it was very dependent on the crowds brought by it for its profitability. Okay, so once the America's Cup finished, people started to not come, and bars and restaurants started to close. So it became like a ghost city. And now the situation is a bit different, but it wasn't until 2010. So the project started in 2004. America's Cup finished in 2007, and until 2010 there wasn't an usage plan for the area. Things have started to change now, but anyway, the hardware, the infrastructure is not designed for the city. They are trying to do good of a project which was not thought for the citizenship. So, concluded that. So, and I wanted to finish with some questions. As I said, although one of the main objectives was the transformation of the inner harbor, good quality placemaking and long-term planning became secondary to ensuring the economic returns to pay the loan. So the question emerges, would have been possible to use more creative financial instruments? Would have been possible to use the event as a catalyst, but integrated it into the long-term planning of the city? Is it possible or not? I finished because I'm already overrunning.